Hey, what's going on, guys? I got a lot of comments in my Pro Bowl videos about, hey, the Pro Bowl's a pointless game. It's mediocre. You know, it's worthless. It's a consolation prize for those teams that didn't make it to the Super Bowl. I think that's a whole lot of horse shit. Actually, I think the mediocre actually does play a part. But my only issue with the Pro Bowl is that the lack of competitiveness between the players, where they're playing like two-hand touch and stuff like that. Back in like the 80s and the 90s, you're going up against the best players in the game. More importantly, it was the week after the Super Bowl. A couple of years ago, they changed it and put it the week before Super Bowl because they don't want to have that gap in between the Super Bowl and the conference championships where there's no football, which I understand. But the fact that it's not after the Super Bowl, there's no sort of cap off to the season the way it was before, because it was a send-off game. Although they went out there, they didn't hit each other as hard as before, but the Super Bowl champions were usually in attendance, and because they were there, you probably wanted to send a message like, yo, next year it's gonna be different, or you want to put them on notice that you're coming. You'd be able to get real competitive towards the ending of the game. Like when you look at different sports, every sport has an all-star game. At least I believe all the main or the four major sports have an all-star game, and in those all-star games, it's relatively competitive down the stretch. Like in the NBA, it's all fun and games until like the last 5 minutes of the fourth quarter. The past recent years, that hasn't been the case, but nonetheless, that was always the blueprint for how the all-star games went. In the NFL, that used to be the case, but it's no longer that. For me personally, when I was in high school, I was actually supposed to play in the all-star game. Evidently, one of my teammates came back from injury. Nobody informed me, and when I ended up finding out, they were halfway through the week's practice, and evidently I couldn't go anymore. I'm still bitter about that. But luckily one of my teammates won the MVP, so I guess they represented for my school. But you know, my thoughts on the Pro Bowl is it's a great event. It is, especially with the week building up until the game where you have the skills challenge. I'm happy they brought that back, televised practices, but they have to bring back the competitiveness. I understand the winning team gets more money and the losing team still gets paid. I think what they're probably going to try to do moving forward is give all the money to charity because, oh, those players, they make enough money. They don't need the money. But they need to make it competitive. Like, there has to be a sense of pride between, if you're Antonio Brown, you're lining up against Jalen Ramsey. You're not, because you're on the same team. Let's go with Xavier Rhodes or something like that. Or let's just say it's an NFC corner who you played early in the year, and let's say they shut you down or something like that. Here's your opportunity to redeem yourself. If you're a Julio Jones, who seems to always be injured whenever Pro Bowls show up, or he just decides not to show up, but anybody on the NFC or the AFC, here's your opportunity to cement that, hey, I'm better than you. I understand it could be all fun and games, but for me personally, I believe if you want to be the best in the game, here's your opportunity to show why. Like down the stretch in this Pro Bowl, I thoroughly enjoyed it because the AFC were down and they came back. And it's not like the NFC just allowed the AFC to come back. The AFC were actually there playing football. The lack of tackling did play a role, I would say that. But the way they ran plays and going for it on fourth down and stuff like that, and actually a lot of players making plays and trying to break free, I thoroughly enjoyed that. So I'm hoping moving forward in Pro Bowls, you know, they'll have a higher level of competitiveness, because I have seen over the years where, for example, Cam Newton, his rookie year when he went to the Pro Bowl, he started playing hard, and it seemed the defensive players took offense to that and started, you know, hitting him in the backfield, you know, getting him for sacks and stuff like that. I remember Adrian Peterson was running extremely hard his rookie year. He ended up getting the MVP. And I remember one of the commentators was saying, hey, you know, you don't got to go that hard in the game, but the way that I learned how to play football is you practice, or I should say you play the games the way that you practice, meaning that you practice extremely hard. So whether it's an exhibition game, it's a preseason game, it doesn't matter when the game is played, you give 100%. So I believe the Pro Bowl should be like that. I understand not trying to get nobody hurt because you're going into the off season, but still, play hard. That's all I want to see. Now, as for the news that broke yesterday evening, Alex Smith being traded to the Redskins, so that pretty much solidifies that Kirk Cousins is moving on. Now, I'm not really a big fan of the trade because I liked Kirk Cousins in Washington. I don't believe it's his fault as to why they're not succeeding, because to be quite honest, the first 10 games of the season, the Redskins went into the fourth quarter with the lead about like 6 Out of those 10 games, what was their record through the stretch? What is it, 4-7 through 11 games? They should have been 8-3 through 11 games. I don't know why I started with first 10 games. Let's go with the first. They should have been like 8-3, but the failure to close games was the problem, and that's on the hands of the defense, not the offense, because they took care of business for what it was worth. I mean, Jordan Reed was hurt here and there. He didn't play as well. Him not playing well is not the fault of Kirk Cousins. In the backfield, you didn't have a running back. Chris Thompson played phenomenal this season, but he was more of a receiving back than he was a running back. But when he was in there, he did what he had to do. There was no number one running back. They have to fix that. That's not on Kirk Cousins. Offensive line wasn't playing as well as they did 2 years ago when they went to the postseason. As for the receivers, Jamison Crowder, he did all right. I mean, Garcon, he's gone. They don't have him anymore. He was on San Francisco. So they need to get themselves a number one receiver. You brought in Pryor, and he did. That's not Kirk Cousins' fault, but they shipped him away. I personally would have rather had seen Alex Smith stay in division and went to the Broncos. So if I'm Kirk Cousins, now I have 3 teams where I have landing spots where I believe I can possibly win games. Number 1 being Jacksonville if they don't re-sign Bortles. So I'm going to Jacksonville if I'm Kirk Cousins. Number 2, you have the Denver Broncos. They still have that defense, although they might be letting go of Talib. They still have the infrastructure of that defense. So you do have somebody to bail you out if you don't have the best sort of games. So that's number 2 on the list. Number 3 being Arizona. But Arizona, they are an older team. You do have the luxury of having a number 1 running back there who's extremely capable, first team All-Pro, Pro Bowler in David Johnson. You got Larry Fitzgerald, the Dreadlocks Hall of Famer. So you got that over there. But you lost Bruce Arians as a coach, so I'm not sure how the offense is going to be ran over there. But if I'm Kirk Cousins, those are the 3 teams that I'm looking at. Ultimately, you do have Buffalo, and there's like 2 other teams that are there that actually need a quarterback. But if I was him, I'm looking at Jacksonville, I'm looking at Arizona, I'm looking at Denver. But as for the trade, I mean, Alex Smith, he had probably his best season in his career this past year, so I'm hoping he can replicate that in Washington, because I do believe Washington is an extremely capable team. So we'll see how things play out in the future. And also an update, I'm going to do my State of the Pittsburgh Steelers address right after the Super Bowl. Well, not right after, but the week after. And give my thoughts on Todd Haley being fired. Give my thoughts on the calling of Mike Tomlin to be fired. What moves I think we need to make. I'm not big into college football, so I can't give you any who I think we should draft or anything like that. But I can tell you the positions we gotta get fixed. So look out for that. But that's my thoughts on the Pro Bowl, the Alex Smith trade. So let me know in the comment section, do you think the Alex Smith trade was a good idea? And also let me know what your thoughts are on the Pro Bowl. Do you think it's a game that people should be tuned into? Do you think it's officiated the wrong way? Do you think the NFL, or I should say the players, don't go about the game the way that they should? Let me know what you think about that.